What's up, Honor? So it's officially that time of year again that Spirit Halloween is starting to open all across North America, and by now we've pretty much seen every single new in-store animatronic for the season. So today I decided to rank all 20 of the brand new in-store animatronics from Spirit Halloween for 2025 from worst to best, to really just see what's the best animatronics of the season and of course the worst. So with that said, that's enough talk for the intro. Let's of course get right into it. Start off with the worst animatronic of the year. And starting off at number 20, we've of course got Young Hee. Now let me start off by saying I love Squid Game, it's a great show and everything, but really I just have a strong hatred towards this one animatronic. First of all, this isn't really a Halloween animatronic or even a Halloween character. The only really connection it has to Spirit Halloween is that of course Squid Game costumes are popular. And also we only get so many licensed animatronics each year. This year I would have really loved to see a FNAF animatronic finally, but unfortunately we get something like this instead that isn't even that Halloween-y. Now I will still say the animatronic itself is a pretty good representation of what we see in the show, and then the animation with the head spinning around and the eyes and everything, you know, it does work for the animatronic. But still, I just can't really like this character with it not necessarily being a horror character or Halloween related at all. But anyways, the Young Hee doll right here, of course she is retailing for $700, which is quite pricey for pretty much just a 10-foot animatronic with the couple of animations, but overall for what it is, it's a decent one. But I'm gonna say it's the worst of the year. And coming in at number 19, I'm sorry to say it, but we of course got Night Owl. Now Night Owl here, it's definitely a cool concept, a massive bat animatronic, and I really do like the sculpt that they did on the main body, like the head and the legs and everything. But when of course you zoom out from that and you look at the wings of this thing, that's when it really just falls apart for me. The wings on this thing just look so cheap. Like, I don't know what they were thinking when they designed this. It would have been cool to see some like printed fabric on there where it sort of had like feathers or details like that, but instead it's just this sort of like blank wing with some creepy cloth and everything. Overall just really sucks. And then this thing is also really lacking animation for what its price is. It really only has the wings there and everything. It would have been nice to see some head animation or really just something else going for this, because just having the wings right there, you know, it just doesn't feel enough for how much you're paying. So overall, Night Owl, it really could use some improvements, and for this one it's of course coming at a price of $250, which is a little bit much for it again, but overall I still do really like that head sculpt and everything on this end. At least it does have that going for it. But carrying on to number 18, we of course have Sadistic Sadie. Which Sadistic Sadie right here, it's not necessarily a bad animatronic, it's just more of a simple one and just doesn't really compare to some of the other bigger characters we have this year. Pretty much it's just this little doll, she turns her head around, and overall for what it is, it's pretty generic. Now, I will say I do somewhat appreciate how they sort of went with a little bit of a different animation though we typically get with these little doll animatronics, but overall for what it is, it's still a more simple one. And of course, this one right here, it's coming at $90, which isn't too bad price, but still, this one right here, it's a simple one, and that's why it's coming in at number 18. Alright, but carrying on now to number 17, we of course have Bullseye. Which Bullseye right here, I will say he does look really cool. I love the color scheme on him and then the face and everything. I like how it's sort of a different design than just the generic clowns we get. But overall, what really I don't like about this is just some of the things with the animation stuff. Of course, I don't love how the wheel, of course, spins with his head. I was really hoping that would just be the head that spun around. I feel like the wheel, it doesn't really need to spin around. It doesn't make as much sense. Then, of course, another thing that I don't love is pricing on this guy. He, of course, is really expensive for pretty much just getting one animation, with him being a smaller animatronic at around 4 foot. Now, like I mentioned, he does still look really cool, and he's got some pretty good audio, but still, there's a couple things I don't love about this guy. But anyways, for this guy, he's coming at $250, which is the one thing that's a little bit much for just a smaller character, but still, for what he is, I wouldn't say he's the worst of all time. He's just another average prop for this year. Carrying on now to number 16, though, let's talk about another clown, which is, of course, Headcase Harry. Which for Headcase Harry, there's a couple of good things going for him. Of course, I do like that look of him, like the head right there with the two mold together is kind of cool, and then overall his color scheme and everything looks alright, but really the one thing that's holding me back from loving this guy a lot more is just that he's more of a generic clown. He doesn't really offer anything new. He's just that typical SVI guy with just that similar SUI clown look with the side-to-side animation and everything. Overall, he just doesn't really offer anything too unique for me to rank him higher. So honestly, for this guy right here, he's pretty much just another typical clown guy aside from that unique head. And overall for him right here, he's coming at a price of $270, which honestly is not too bad for a big 6-foot clown animatronic. I'd say he's pretty worth that price, but overall probably not one I would get. He's just a bit more of a generic one. And now carrying on to number 15, we've once again got another clown. This guy is somewhat one we saw last year, both a new costume. This guy is, of course, Art the Clown. Which the new Art the Clown here, I've got to say, his costume and everything looks so cool. I really do love just all that blood detail they were able to add onto it and everything. And overall, yeah, just looks insane. I love it. And then, yeah, the addition of the one axe there in the one hand is pretty cool. But then a couple of things I don't love about this guy is he's essentially a reskin of Art the Clown from last year. I really wish they would have done more and given him some new animation stuff just to differentiate him from the old art we had other than just the costume change. And then too, on his costume, there's a couple of things that you can definitely tell they cheaped out on. Like, of course, the boots right there, they're not actual boots. It's sort of weird how it's like part of his costume too. Overall, there's just a couple of minor things like that that aren't the greatest. But overall, for what he is, he's still pretty good. And of course, he's coming at a price of $270, which is a little bit much considering that Art the Clown last year only retailed for $200. But overall, new Art the Clown right here, I do like that costume, so he's a pretty good animatronic. And moving on to number 14, we've of course got another clown, which is not too much surprise. This guy is, of course, Two-Faced Teddy, which Two-Faced Teddy is essentially this year's budget prop, and I've got to say they've definitely improved over what we got last year for the budget animatronic. Two-Faced Teddy right here, I'll say he's a pretty good animatronic for what he is. He's pretty much just this big 6-foot clown guy. He's got this really cool black and orange color scheme, which we've never really seen it on clowns, so that is really cool. Then, of course, he's got this cool animation where his head, it sort of spins around. And, of course, it's just a reskin of Poor George's face, but I do really like that face design, so it is nice to see it reused for this guy here. Now, the one thing I will say that's holding this guy from being farther up in the list is that he's still a pretty generic clown. They haven't really done anything too unique with this guy, aside from giving us that animation, which we've never really seen before too much for a clown animatronic. But overall, just the audio and look of this guy is very generic. And overall, for this guy coming in only $130, that's an amazing deal. And honestly, it's one that maybe I would consider just because his price is so good. But overall, Two-Faced Teddy is a solid clown animatronic. And carrying on now to spooky number 13, we've once again got another clown, big surprise there. This guy is, of course, Monkey Business. Which Monkey Business right here is a really cool clown animatronic. This guy, one thing I love about him over lots of these other clowns is that he's not as generic as some of the other ones. He, of course, has some really cool new features which we've never really seen before for clowns. The one big thing he has, which is unique, is, of course, that box he's holding where a monkey pops out of it, which is really creepy and such a good jump scare. And then the clown himself, it's nothing too crazy. We've seen sort of that black and white type of color scheme before, but still he looks really nice. And overall for him, I will say there's not too much to complain about. He's got some really good animation, audio, and everything. Overall, he's a really good clown animatronic. Now, one thing I will say is he's a little bit more of a pricey one, coming at $330, which is a little bit much for what is pretty much just a 6.5-foot clown animatronic, but still he does have that other animation where he's holding the whole box and everything, so for what he is, Monkey Business, not too bad of a one. Alright, and carrying on to number 12, we of course got another clown, but let me tell you, so the last clown on the list, this guy is of course Trick or Treat Pete. With Trick or Treat Pete, I've got to say he's a pretty cool one because he's got this new animation which is somewhat unique. He of course doesn't really have any animation, but in his head right there in the hat, you can fill it up with candy, and then he's got this thing which of course dispenses candy when he's activated, which is really cool. We've never really seen anything like this before. Typically when we have animatronic candy bowls, it's just a candy bowl that holds, but this guy is really cool how you just walk by him and then he'll just spit out a couple treats for someone. And then I do also just really love the design of this guy. All the different colors look amazing. I love just, yeah, all the different things going on. Overall, he's definitely not a generic clown. And overall, Trick or Treat Pete here is coming at a price of $240, which is a little bit much for him not really having any animation, for him not being too tall of a character, but still for what he is, I do like that new theme that they're doing, and I'd like to see them use this technology again in the future. Alright, and carrying on now to number 11, we've of course got Valak. Which Valak right here is of course a licensed animatronic from the Nun franchise, and overall this one, I do like what they have done with it. Overall, the character herself, it looks really good and really much like what we see in the movie. And then that animation too, with how she pops out, looks really awesome. Now, one thing I will say is I really do wish the animation, you didn't see the whole thing behind her that's sort of set up to help push her out. It would have been cool to see them try and make something that wasn't as noticeable, but still, for what she is, you know, it's not too noticeable if you're looking at her head on. And overall, it's still just such a cool animation. So overall, for Valak right here, she's pretty cool and coming at a price of $300, which is a little bit much, but typically these licensed animatronics are a little bit higher. But overall, for what she is, she's not too bad of a one. Alright, but carrying on now into the top 10, this is where we're getting to some of the best characters of the year. Starting off with, of course, Trixie. Which Trixie here is a new jump scare animatronic, which overall looks really cool. I love how that animation is, where she sort of like pops up, and then also the mask flips up to reveal her face. One thing I will say is the animation does look a little bit weird, how when she bounces up, she sort of bounces a little bit after that, but still for what it is a pretty good jump scare and will probably get a lot of people. And then yeah, the detail on her looks amazing. I love the face design on there and everything. I like how she's holding a little trick or treat bag there and her hand pops out, and she's also got some of those blood details on her. Overall with the design, they've done a pretty good job. And overall for pricing on Trixie, she's coming at $200, which isn't too bad. She's a decently sized animatronic, got that cool animation, so overall $200, not too bad of a deal for what you're getting. So overall, Trixie's an awesome one and definitely one of the best ones this year. And carrying on to number 9, we've of course got Twisted Grandma. Which Twisted Grandma right here is a creepy one, is definitely giving me older techie vibes, which is really cool. I do like the look of this one. The face there looks awesome. I like the clothing they went with and everything. And then the animation too is really cool. How of course she just slowly turns her head around to look at you. Then of course the rest of her body just snaps around, and overall it's a good jump scare too, I guess. And then the audio she's got is a little bit more cheesier, but it's still pretty funny to listen to. So overall, this one right here, it's a pretty good character. And of course, pricing on this, it's coming at $230, which isn't too bad. She's a decently sized character at around 6 feet tall, I believe. So overall, Twisted Grandma right here, a solid animatronic to have at number 9. And coming in at number 8, we've got the new Mr. Dark reskin for this year. This guy is, of course, the Sinister Strawman. Which this guy here is, of course, a Scarecrow reskin of Mr. Dark. And honestly, this is one of the best reskins so far. This one is just so detailed. I love all the different themes going on, like the different colors of the clothing, all the different stuff he's got on, like he's even got on the big top hat. Overall, just a ton of detail going on this guy, especially compared to the original Mr. Dark. Then also for audio on this guy, he's got some pretty lengthy lines, which is nice, which is something that really was lacking on the original versions of these animatronics. And then of course, he's got that same animation, which is always just so good. Honestly, one of the best jump scares we've ever seen from Spirit. It's just so effective. And overall for this guy right here, is coming at a price of $330, which is a little bit much, especially considering that Mr. Dark a few years back was only $250, but $330 is pretty consistent with the last few reskins. So overall, for what he is, the price is not the worst, and for what he is with that jump scare and everything, this guy is a really good animatronic. And moving on to number 7, we've of course got Mutant Sewer Rat, which Mutant Sewer Rat is really the main animatronic that's sort of dedicated to the theme this year in stores. And overall, this guy right here, I really love what he is. He's pretty much just a big sewer rat. I love the design of him and everything. The head on him looks great. I like just kind of that clothing he has on. Overall, he's a pretty cool animatronic. Now, one thing I will say is he's a bit of a smaller one, which I do wish he was way bigger, because I think that would have been cooler to see a massive rat in the display. But for what he is, the smaller size, you know, it's still very big compared to a real rat. So it's not like it's this tiny little guy. He's still decently sized. So overall, he's really cool, and I definitely prefer him over the Morris Costumes version. Then, of course, for price on this guy, is coming at $230, which isn't too bad of price. He is like a smaller character, but still, he does have a lot of detail on him and everything, so I do think that price tag is worth it for overall what is a pretty good animatronic. And moving on to number 6, we've of course got Crypt Countess, which Crypt Countess is this new ghoul sort of character, and overall I really love what they have done with her. Probably my favorite thing is definitely that animation right there. It's just a little bit violent how it thrashes around, which is cool, and it just looks so fluid with how the arms and everything move along with it. Overall, the soundtrack right here, they did a great job on that animation. And then the look of it and everything, you know, the head looks really good, the clothes and everything looks nice, and it's a big one towering over you at 7 feet tall. Overall, this character right here is insane. And honestly, not too much to complain about this one. It's a really cool looking animatronic, and honestly one of the best ones this year. Coming in at, of course, $300, which isn't too bad for just how big this thing is and just how cool it is. So overall, Crypt Countess here, definitely a really good one, and nice to have at number 6 on the list. And now moving on to top 5, these next 5 animatronics right here are really the best of the year from Spirit. These are the greatest ones of the year, definitely my personal favorites. And overall, to kick it off, let's of course talk about Jack the Reaper. And people have been asking 4 years for Spirit to do a Jack the Reaper animatronic, and finally this year they delivered, and honestly they did not do too bad a job at all. They've really done a good job with this character. Of course, for animation and features on this, they really done a good job with what they chose to give it. They, of course, gave it that motion tracking feature, which we saw introduced last year, which really does fit the character. Of course, has it where his hand and his head follows you around, and overall, that's just a perfect animation for this guy. I don't think he really needed anything else. And then this guy's audio sounds amazing. They did a really good job on everything. They didn't mess up at all, which is one thing I was thinking maybe they would do, but really they did a great job. And then overall, the look of this guy looks really good. He, of course, looks like something right off of that logo for Spirit Halloween and everything. I like how they gave him the whole bottom half where it sort of wraps around the scythe and everything. Overall, this guy right here, great job in design and everything. So overall, he's a really awesome animatronic. And Jack the Reaper here is, of course, coming at a price of $330, which is more of an expensive one, but really for all of what this guy is, that price is not too bad. And honestly, there's so much stuff going on with this guy. So overall, he's definitely a good one to have at number 5. He is definitely one of the best ones this year. And carrying on now to number 4, we've got another massive animatronic. This guy is, of course, Fire Demon. Which Fire Demon here is such an awesome one. I love how he's just towering over you. Really having his arms over him there just adds so much extra height to this guy, which is awesome. Then I love the animation where he just opens up his arms right there to reveal himself, to reveal that really creepy face on there, which looks sculpted really well. His chest right there with the glowing lights and everything. Overall, he's just a monster of animatronic, and honestly one of the best devil ones we've ever seen. So honestly, a lot going on in this guy. He is a great animatronic, and of course he's coming at a price of $310, which isn't too bad for just how big this guy is and everything. He's a monster of an animatronic, so that price does fit him pretty well. So overall, Fire Demon, definitely the best devil animatronic of all time. Alright, now kicking off the top 3 with Backbend Bonnie. Which Backbend Bonnie here is a cool animatronic. It's similar to one they had in the past called the Broken Spine Girl. But overall, this one right here is a cool new take on that sort of animation idea for an animatronic. Of course, it starts off, she's facing her back to you. Then she bends her back all the way backwards to facing everything, which is really creepy and just so unhuman. Now, unfortunately, the animation is fairly slow. It's not necessarily a jump scare like the Broken Spine Girl, but still, I don't think this really needed to be a jump scare animatronic. It's still just really creepy with how it bends back and everything, and just how creepy the face and detail and everything on this is and everything. And yeah, her clothing looks nice and everything. So overall, Backbend Bonnie right here, an awesome animatronic, and coming in only $180, which honestly is not too bad. That's a really good price for, again, here and everything, especially with it being a decently sized animatronic around 5 feet tall. So overall, Backbend Bonnie right here, an awesome one. Alright, and carrying on now to number 2, we've of course got Lantern Keeper. Which Lantern Keeper here is one that I will definitely be buying this year. I really love just how this guy is here and everything. His look just looks amazing. I love that head he's got on and everything, the pumpkin look, it looks awesome. Then also like just his clothes and everything he got on, they really did a good job choosing what design to go with for this guy. And then some good animation too. I like how he sort of turns just back and forth right there. And then his hand, it just lifts it up to his mouth to sort of shush you, which is really cool. And then overall, some of the lighting features on this guy also look awesome. And this guy's a pretty big one at 6.5 feet tall, and a pretty good priced one at $230, which isn't too bad for all that you get on this. Honestly, that's a really good price. So overall, Lantern Keeper, I can't wait for my store to get this guy in, because the second they do, I'm definitely going there and picking this guy up for myself. Alright, but now moving on to the big number 1. This is, of course, the best animatronic of 2025, in my opinion. Of course, comment your opinions down below, because I assume not all of you will agree with this. But anyways, at number 1, I'm going to have to put Electrified Corpse. Which, Electrified Corpse, he's not even brand new for 2025. He's just one of their flashback type of animatronics where they haven't sold him in quite a few years, so they're just bringing him back. And honestly, this guy right here, I've got to say, he really just beat everything in this lineup this year. I'm just a really big fan for more of that classic Halloween animatronic vibe, and especially something like this. There's just so much gore detail on him. He's definitely way creepier than a lot of stuff we have nowadays. So overall, he's just honestly one of the coolest animatronics this year, just with how he is. I really love his animation, how he just shakes around violently right there. It's cool, some of the wires on him light up and everything. He's also got lights in the eyes right there and the mouth. And then also just the detail in this guy looks insane. His face right there looks awesome. I like the hand mold. His cool and everything looks great. And then also like his top right there, how they also added this nice gore detail where he's chopped off and everything. Overall, just a ton of awesome detail has gone into this animatronic. And overall for him, a really great deal. Only $150, which is really well worth it for the Electrified Corpse here. So overall, he's an awesome animatronic and the best of 2025. Anyways, with all that said, that of course is it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoy. I'm sure my list here is definitely gonna get some controversy. A lot of you are not gonna fully agree with what I have to say here, but anyways, I'd still love to hear from you down in the comments your opinions on what you would rank all 20 of these animatronics, or even just what your 5 most favorite are or least favorite are for this year. I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comments. But anyways, that's it. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and of course, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.